moving business forward.
Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, the VTN BIZNESS DELITE. My name is Priska Chemeka. Hope you enjoyed previous episodes. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel to get notified when we post new videos. This week, we're bringing you a game changer. He's a distinguished gentleman, one of the frontline players in the maritime world. Taufik Adebite is the CEO of Marine Platform. Sit back, relax yourself while we unfold the details.
The world of marine engineering in Nigeria is a thriving and expanding terrain. As the world continues to develop and progress, this sector also enjoys gradual progress, but Nigerians continue to be limited in the opportunities and potentials they can tap into within the sector. And this is mostly due to the lack of proper education and training for graduates of Nigerian universities and marine academies. This explains why Marine Platforms committed to being part of a transformation project planned to uplift Nigerians and further bridge the skill gap within Nigeria's marine engineering sector. The Practical Sea Time Experience Program is an initiative of major players within the oil and gas sector, which will provide cadets with the knowledge and skill to enable them obtain a certificate of competency, secure a job within the field of marine engineering, and function effectively towards growth in the highest positions within the sector.
Thank you very much, sir. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you.
Can you give us a bit background of Marine Platform?
Marine Platform is an indigenous company. We started in 2001, but registered the company in 2002. Clarion call to the local content initiative. We render services where what they call the oil field service companies, OFSCs. So we offer well services where we support the drilling. After drilling for a well, you do the completions. And of course, we offer subsea solutions where when you produce oil in a deep water environment, we need to install the subsea hardware, the Christmas trees, the pipes, which are called the flow lines, the cables to put power there, which are called umbilicals. That's the second leg of our business. And the third leg of our business is vessel chartering, because we focus mainly on the deep water environment. And in deep water, we work from the vessels. So those are the three service offerings of Marine Platforms. Ownership is by three of us. Baji Inyam, who is my partner and the Chief Finance Officer. Biodun Odusi, partner and Chief Operating Officer. And myself as the CEO. We have Chief Technical Officer, Angus Carr, who sits in Aberdeen to help us remain in contact with original equipment manufacturers. Today, staff strength is approaching 500. That's who we are, all thanks to the Nigerian content.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful response. Can you tell us a bit about SOAN and what are its objectives?
SOAN, Ship Owner Association of Nigeria, an association of ship owners, in the real sense of ship owners. And the whole idea is you must own a ship before you're a member of SOAN. And it has really helped. The key principle or the key reason behind that is when you own a ship, you know where the shoe pinch is. So that's the basic differentiation of SOAN, that you must be a ship owner. And so it's a pressure group, it's an association where we try to articulate ideas to support government policy, to advise, and of course, to further strengthen the industry for Nigerians.
And then where do you hope to see this association in the next 5 to 10 years?
No, you can tell because you have the SOAN, the interesting, you have a common purpose. Everyone owns a ship, everyone is taking huge bank loans, everyone is taking high risks, and everyone needs the revenue stream. Everyone needs the foreign exchange to pay the bank loans. The purpose is defined. So where do we see SOAN? SOAN, of course, will really and truly enhance capacity building in the maritime sector. Capacity building, importantly, as we speak today, in the material capacity, which is actually the vessels. Yes, have we built sufficient capacity in the human? Not where we want to be, but if we have the vessels, it means the students we are getting out of Oron and other places will have vessels where to train, and ultimately we'll be able to build sufficiently both human and material capacity. So I think SWAN is really championing this, and in 10 years, with the way the association is going, creating awareness, building capacity, I think we will look back and smile that something has been achieved.
How would you appraise the maritime industry in Nigeria?
That's a very tricky one. We're not where we should be, clear. Are we now charting a course to where we want to be? Yes. So the Cabotage Act, as we all know, in 2002 was seemingly sleepy up until right about 2008-9. Then by 2010 was able to get some sort of traction on the strength of the Nigerian Content Act. So I see the Nigerian Content Act really pulling the maritime industry deep into the oil and gas industry, and that has created sizable tonnage. Because if we look at the maritime industry today, I think most of the tonnage we have is in the upstream oil and gas industry today. Yes, we have some in the downstream, i.e. tankers and all of that. So we're gradually moving in the right direction. We're now having ferry services, which is the seemingly low end of the spectrum. So I think there's awareness. We're seeing Lagos State now trying to do the inland waterways and ferry services. So we're getting off the ground. We're not where we should be, but I think we're on the right track now.
Thank you very much, sir, for that in-depth response. How would you assess the operations of NEMASA?
Truly speaking, without NEMASA, we could not have been able to enforce the cabotage. We would not have been able to really bring to bear government policies, intentions, and directions. So NEMASA is the body responsible to ensure that the maritime industry is coordinated well. Very importantly, NEMASA is the depository of the ship registry. And if anything is of absolute importance, like your birth certificate, that is the ship registry, and that's deposited in NEMASA. So NEMASA is extremely important. And I must say, something that is of absolute importance in maritime is the safety, which is the responsibility of NEMASA, because there's no point in anyone going to work in the morning not to get back to the family at close of business. So those are the things that NEMASA has put in place. So they're extremely important, and in fairness, NEMASA has been doing what's set up to do. Yeah, the Cabotage Act 2002 is actually after the Jones Act in the United States. And the takeaway is simply saying there are like 3 levels. If you charter a vessel, how do you metamorphose into owning the vessel? And in owning a vessel, how do you now up your ante to building ships in Nigeria? I think the ultimate goal of cabotage is to increase tonnage of ships owned by Nigerians. The cabotage is indeed very fantastic. The cabotage is total, and yes, we're now seeing that enforcement of the cabotage is taking a new dimension, especially with the new leadership of NEMASA and the minister, as you saw at the stakeholders forum we held, trying to really give Cabotage Act the right kind of bite in implementation, because it will indeed enhance and build capacity in the country, because basically a Nigerian-owned ship must have a right of first refusal, to work. A Nigerian-built ship must have a right of first refusal. So when we start owning ships, we can start repairing and maintaining ships. When we start repairing and maintaining ships, then we can move into saying we want to build ships. So we're seeing the movement in the right direction, and cabotage is what's giving us the leverage, fundamentals to even dare going into ownership of ships.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful response. What would you say are the opportunities and prospects in the maritime industry?
Broadly speaking, you can dimension the maritime industry into upstream support, downstream support. You have the tankers, you have the bulk carriers, you have the cargo carriers, you have the ferry service, the inland waterways, and whatnot. If if you ask me, the area where I think we have been able to sufficiently build capacity is in the upstream side. We're trying, like I said, in the downstream side. Have we gotten to where we want to be? No. Are we going in the right direction? I think yes. So what are the opportunities and the prospects? The opportunities are humongous. How many vessels are required in the upstream space? Some over 100, 200. How many crude tankers how many crude tankers are required to even lift the crude if we have the capacity? Considerable. What is lacking is in the vessel tonnage, and why that is lacking is simply the paucity of funds for people to go into. However, I strongly want to agree with the minister. Is it just about the funds or about the entrepreneurial will and the attitude of entrepreneurs towards, even if you are given the funds, will it actually be used for what you already or you set out to do? So opportunities, fantastic. Have we even gotten to 10% of the opportunities there? No, we're scratching the surface. But like I said, we're on the right path with determination and the courage to invest, persevere. And then, of course, we're in for a big blow there.
Thank you, sir. So how would you assess the role of the banks in the international maritime business?
Like someone said during the Nigerian content workshop we had in Calabar, that marine platforms is not to be used as a measure of local content, because we have been extremely lucky. God has been faithful, and we have decided and determined right from the beginning that we're going to claw back everything into the business, and we will build capacity, really. So the banks, same thing. As I speak to you today, just a single bank, Sky Bank, they funded the purchase of the African Inspiration, African Vision. We first acquired the African Vision, which is a 100-ton crane capacity vessel, 96-meter long, 69-man accommodation, and that cost us about $90 million at the time. We paid duty about $9 million. And we funded it through the local bank, Sky Bank. And we didn't stop at that. We moved further to build the African Inspiration. The African Inspiration, that's a 250-ton crane vessel, 112-meter long, and 120-man accommodation. That's huge. That was above $100 million. Duty paid was about $10 million. So, funded by Skybank, that's a local bank. Do we have other banks doing the same? Yes. I know First Bank is funded ship acquisition. I know friends that Diamond Bank is funded ship acquisition. So I think, yes, banks are out there to fund. GT Bank, they funded some ship acquisition. But I think the most important thing is banks will fund good transactions. So the first thing I reckon is, how bankable is your ship acquisition? Will a bank just buy you a ship because they like your face or because the ship is good? No. Will a bank fund your ship acquisition because you'll be able to repay the cost of acquiring the ship and you'll be able to meet your operational expenditure? The moment you can answer yes, then I think the bank will fund it. So it's neither here nor there. Will banks fund shipping in Nigeria? Yes, they will fund the shipping. And I always say something, which is always been the mantra in marine platforms. Banks will not fund just the transaction itself. The bank will fund the people behind the transaction. So the moment you can establish integrity, you pay back, you will not divert the bank's money into other things, then of course the bank will fund you. So I think that would be fair to say.
Nigeria account for 2% of the world's ship ownership. What do you think is the problem and how can it be addressed?
All we've been saying, this is the sum total. Why are we low? We're low simply because, one, bankability. Two, the market is still not very well defined. As you know, even if you want to do the lowest point of the entire maritime spectrum, which is you want to go into ferry services. I'm not sure there is clear-cut policy, even on the Lagos state level, how you want to go to invest. I think people are still not very sure if government wants to go in there, if there will be concession, how it will be, And investment doesn't like uncertainty. You must have a very clear-cut direction. So I think that in the low spectrum, if we go into the containers, and that takes loads and loads of logistics. If you want to compete with established companies of Grimaldi, Maersk, come on, where do you want to start from? So those are the issues. Do you want to keen to partner them? Will they build you your capacity? No, because no of these foreign companies will build your capacity for you. So the issue, I think, is, should they give everybody money? No. I think, importantly, we must be able to define the markets. The moment we can define the markets, and we luckily have some captive markets. One, in the inland waterways, that's captive. We can control that, whatever we want to do. We don't have any intrusion from any foreign company. In the downstream, crude movement and all, yes, we can make it captive. In the upstream, yes, it's captive market. Thankfully, because we have laws that says Nigerians must work before foreign owners. So even foreign owners have excess tonnage, excess capacity, the law protects the Nigerians, and that's what I mean by captive market. The moment you are protected against undue competition, then it means you can board and flourish. So if we can articulate all of those into policies, then we will move from 2%, and you'll be so amazed the heights we will attain. But until we do that, we will struggle, because we're competing with, you're talking about established companies, you're talking about economies where interest rates are below 3%, so where do you want to start from? So we need to, the only thing I think we have as an advantage is the market, which is captive, and that's what we should leverage on.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, we have been speaking with one of the doyens in the industry, Mr. Taufik Adenipe. Please stay with us, we'll be right back.
MPL is commissioning ROV simulator, remotely operated vehicle simulator. The simulator, we got it in the bid to fill the gap in the skill gap in the industry. Marine Platform's commitment to training and improving the local content is 100%. They go way above and beyond to train us.
We've been able to build capacity and also being cost effective over time. And right now, what we are doing now, we've been able to also demonstrate that we can stand the test of time.
All right, sir, so when will ships be built in Nigeria?
Have we built ships in Nigeria? Are we building ships in Nigeria? Yes. I think Alumaco are doing some live boats, some live rafts in Port Harcourt, but that's the low end. And I'm sure the kind of ships you're saying, when are we going to build, will be building the big ship. My attitude to life is you must crawl before you walk, and you must walk before you run. So before we build ships, I must strongly believe we need to own ships. And before we build ships, we need to understand ships. So if we understand ships, I reckon we'll be able to now start building ships. It's not always the case, as we have seen in some areas. And it's where we want to say. Philippines, for instance, they don't build ships, but they train seafarers and they export seafarers all over the world. Norway is one of the few unique countries where they build ships and they operate ships. Poland, do they build ships? Yes. Do they own ships? Not as much. But they have seafarers as well, maritime crew. So Nigeria, we need to now start looking at where do we want to plug in and where do we want to play. It will interest you. United Kingdom used to build ships, but they don't build ships anymore. But what do they do today? They do ship administration and all the insurance in the world. So they are making money off everybody. They do the best of the banking, the best of the insurance, the best of everything. So, but you start from the basic understanding. So Nigeria, I think before we go into shipbuilding, we need to own ships. Let's own sufficient tonnage of ships. Then we will be able to train sufficient number of Nigerians as seafarers who, even if they don't get jobs in Nigeria, will be able to work outside Nigeria. That will be a source of foreign exchange. Then we can now start maintaining the ships we own in country. It's cheaper for anybody to dry dock a ship in Nigeria than taking the ship to Las Palmas or taking it to Walvis Bay in Namibia. So, because of the travel days alone. So, if we start repairing the ships, we retain foreign exchange. It cost us, for instance, about $5 million to go all the way to Las Palmas to dry dock our ship African Vision last year. So, and of the $5 million, I think about $2 million were actually wasted because we go to Las Palmas. So if we had been here, we would have saved that. That's one angle to look at it. Then, if you now start maintaining and repairing ships, gradually you start improvising part of the spares here. You start improvising part of the sheets here. Then you can now start thinking, okay, wait on a minute, perhaps you can build a ship. Until that, I think it will be tricky. So we will build ships, but I think our focus now and our greatest challenge, which will fit into clear strategy periods, i.e., what do we want to achieve in the next 5 years? So if we say in the next 5 years we want to increase our tonnage to 50-60%, then we focus on that. When we achieve that, we can now set another milestone. Okay, in another 5 years, which will now be a 10-year span, we want to have proper repaired dry dock yards. Then we can say after the 10 years, which is now another 5-year strategy period, we say, okay, these dry dock yards, they now sufficiently can repair ships. They can now start venturing into shipbuilding. So we're having like a 15-year kind of strategy span to like from where we are today, owning ships and all, to building ships. If you understand in between that, you would have been able to train tons and tons of Nigerians from even manning the ships to when they are repairing the ships. So when you want to start building ships, you have enough people that's trained in the yards repairing that understand what it's all about. So I think it's not build ship today, no. It will fail, it won't happen, but we should have a strategy span over time and we should start measuring that.
The maritime industry should own their own industry.
No, that's unnecessary. I don't think we'll be misplacing the issues, then that's not the problem. The focus should be on how do we strengthen NEMASA? How do we ensure enforcement of the laws we have? So it's not an issue of the ministry. You have competent people in NEMASA. They've been managing the registry. We have about 2 ships in their registry. They've done the needful in the past. They've written to NCDMB about what they have in their registry. They've written to the IOCs. So what do you want the ministry for? To run that? I just seriously don't believe in unnecessary bureaucracy because it creates a lot of bottlenecks and it will affect. And not even in this day of slim budgets, where we're trying to even bring ministries and government size to manageable levels. So you want to start creating ministries again and trying to merge. That one is straightforward. It's only in Nigeria that you have a port that the train is not ferrying the containers out. That's the first thing we should do. Even if it just moves it from that place to maybe a container terminal somewhere in Ogun State or outside of Lagos. That's just what should be done as a matter of urgency.
We should move by
Straight up, it's just very important that happens.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. How would you operate the taxation regime of government with particular reference to the maritime industry?
That's a very interesting area. What I've seen in government is that we define purpose, but unfortunately, oftentimes you don't have common purpose. When there's no common purpose, and truly speaking, for sake of clarification, when you don't have that common purpose, then you see different arms of government and different parastatals working not in unison for the common purpose. Why am I saying that? If you want to build capacity in the maritime space, and if the tax people are taxing you so aggressively, that's of course straight up a disincentive to you further investing that. And I tell you the classic. If you charter a ship, we have experienced everything before. We've chartered ships from foreign owners. If you charter a ship from a foreign owner, all you need to do when you get to Nigeria is to pay a temporary import bond, 5 million naira, and renewable every 2 years or a waiver. Quite on the contrary, if you buy a ship, you have to pay altogether 10% duty. So you, the Nigerian, in our case, we paid $9 million, paid about 10 point something million dollars, and you're competing with a foreign vessel that's paid 5 million. But thanks to NEMASA and the Cabotage, thanks to NCDMB, that will ensure that, oh, wait on a minute, you foreign vessel owner, this Nigerian vessel must work. So that's the plus side. But how many of such will you have? So what I think is important is government should start looking at, okay, how do we do staggered duty payments? Yes, people must pay, but how do you give them to pay over perhaps a 2-3 years or 5 years, where you can stagger it so that it will not impact on cash flows, so that will not be huge upfront. You know, we can look at that. How do we give some other incentives, i.e. Your withholding tax payments can be used to offset the duty payable. So those are the kind of things I look at in government sector. I must mention, unfortunately, beyond the tax. And that's why I said policies are worked oftentimes across purposes. It's because each and every government parastatal and government agency oftentimes are not seen or talking. So you have a purpose to the presidency to do well, to make money, i.e. customs now is out to generate optimal revenues for government. But I tell you, customs is not seeing the intrinsic value of doing that tax holiday or duty holiday, which will create more vessels, which will give us more jobs, because you know what, that's not what they're seeing. So I think with this administration and us having the Ministry of Budget and Planning, the planning unit of that ministry should start now doing some sort of strategic integration. Okay, purpose of each of the parastatals and ministries, looking at areas of conflicts, looking at areas to streamline what is working against this policy, so that we can now, so that will be the rallying point. It will be the policy integration and strategy unit, where the common purpose will be seen by everybody. I think that's very important. And finally, I tell you, if you import a ship or an equipment into the country, unfortunately, there is a custom and excise paragraph that says, it's called the export prohibition clause. You cannot import a full duty paid equipment. And I tell you, that affects a ship unless and until if you have to go and repair such. So you cannot take your ship out to go and work, which is a source, which would have been a source of foreign exchange. While the proponents, I think, of the custom acts and laws and paragraphs that are not in tandem with the overall promise. And I think the moment we have that, we will be able to flourish, and we will not be able to discourage the people that genuinely want to build capacity for the sake of building capacity.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful response, sir.
Thank you.
Briefly, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
My name is Taufik Adegbete. I'm the CEO of Marine Platforms. Went to Methodist Boys High School in Ibadan. Then I went to University of Ibadan, read computer science. Graduated. I had a brief stint with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, where I did my service. And after working a while in Nigeria, I went to the UK. I did IT for a while, and some other jobs here and there to survive at the time in the UK, as you know. Then, of course, I had to develop myself. I went to London School of Economics to do a certificate program in strategy and organizational management, and took over strategy and business development Marine Platforms. From there, I became the CEO, and I went to Harvard Business School for the OPM 45. And that's OPM 44, sorry. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm married to Chioma, had 3 boys. Yes. I'm a tribalized Nigerian. So
Okay, so how do you spend your leisure time when you're not working?
truly like just reading a lot. If I'm not hanging out with my friends, it's what I do. It's either hang out with my friends, share moments, or I get a book. So when I'm in the car, I always have books in the car to read. As a minimum, when I'm traveling. So those are the things I do. So very much, man. Really appreciate it for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And that's about it on this week's package on VTN Business Delight. Thank you for staying with us. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do join us next week for another industry player. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel. I still remain your host, Priska Chemeka. See you next week.